Having focus as a company is what's made Legend Story Studios so successful with Flesh and Blood. And I wanted to give you a history of Flesh and Blood all the way from its inception, all the way until the end of 2020 and a little bit into 2021. At the end, I'm going to talk about my channel a little bit and about focus as well. This is all about a discussion of focus, man. And what I mean by that, it's a very simple word, but what I mean is when you have a bunch of different things that you could do in life, you have a bunch of different objectives, it's focusing and narrowing in on things at certain time periods and really keying in on those and not worrying about other things. And I think that's so important as individuals, as companies, as anything, man. It's good to have focus in life. Now, I want to also tell you that I'm extremely biased when I'm talking about Flesh and Blood. I'm drinking the most amount of Kool-Aid. I've been analyzing the heck out of this game for the last 4 months around, and I just am completely in love with it, so I am extremely biased. The flip side of the coin of that is I've looked into it a lot, a lot more than a lot of people, so I definitely have that take, but just wanted to say I'm completely biased. And as well, I am not working inside Legend Story Studios. I have not met anyone in there in real life. I do not know these people. I am this guy on the side of a street looking into a house with my binoculars and I'm looking at the furniture. Am I gonna get the whole picture of what's inside that house? Not really, man. I'm gonna know where most of the furniture is. I'm gonna know most of the layout, but I'm not gonna know the whole picture, man. I could be wrong with a lot of this stuff. This is more of me just dramatizing this, but also just letting you know how I see it. But I definitely think that they have a lot of focus as a company, and that's really what led to their success of Flesh and Blood. Now let's take it back. Let's start our story off with James White around 7 to 8 years ago. He's sitting around and he's saying, you know what? I miss the days of yore when I could go into a local game store and just have a great time and hang out with a bunch of my buddies and meet new friends and make those connections that I used to back when, he was competing in other TCGs and having a good time, man. And he had a lot of great friendships that he formed through games. And he wanted to make Flesh and Blood that is a game that is really great at bringing people together, obviously in the Flesh and Blood, man. And he said multiple times, and one place is the lore book, another place is in FabTCG. He says, I wanted to make a game where it really unifies everyone. TCGs are a great medium for people to come together no matter who you are in life. It brings all these different people around a great trading card game, and that's what he wanted to make, a great TCG. So, whenever that was, 7 or 8 years ago, that's where he started, man. And soon enough, when he wanted to start Legend Story Studios, he did it with a good friend of his, Robbie Wen. And Robbie Wen is more of a creative guy. And you know what they did? They focused. James White is like, look, man, I'm going to run this business. I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to make those business decisions and whatnot. And I'm going to work on the mechanics of the game. I'm going to fine tune that. And Robbie, you be the creative guy. You're going to make all the creative decisions with the lore and the artwork. Like, that's going to be your camp over here. So you could really see, man, this is another time where they focused. James White saying, hey, mechanics, Robbie Wen, lore. And I know, man, I know there's a lot of mixed things that they both do. I know James probably helped with the lore, and I know Robbie probably gave different direction on mechanics. There's probably give and take there in that situation. I don't know how much is which, but I can tell you this is that they focused on each part. Now, pre 2018 or in 2018, they needed to get a little bit bigger. And I know that under James White, he's doing the mechanics, but Chris Gearing and Jason Chung are the people who are the devs for the game, man, and play testing it, seeing if things are working, seeing if things are balanced. They're more on the mechanic side. And then Robbie Wen, he has to hire, two different people with the artwork, which is MJ, and then Nikki with the creative writing and the lore, the background for Flesh and Blood. And you can see that there is more focus in this, man. There is more focus where they're saying, hey, this is game development, and James White's going on to run the business, trying to focus more on the business side, but also has decision makings in the mechanics, but Jason Chung and Chris Gehring are working more on the testing and whatnot to make sure all that's hammered out. And same with Robbie. He's directing more. He has more on his plate, and he needs people to help him with the lore and the artwork. So more focus on lower levels. They built up to down. And in 2018, it was all about product development. It's creating a product that was meant to be released out there just to give people a taste and make sure it's like, okay, we want to get something out there. And they did that with the Iris starter decks. They released that at the end of 2018. That's when they were produced, along with these iron rot equipment promo, like specialty cards. That was a moment where they wanted to try to make the game just playable so it could get into people's hands so people could get a taste of the game. So early 2019 comes around and they're trying to get those Iridex out, man. From what I know, they put the Iridex in people's and stores' hands. And 2019, I think, was all about trying to get Welcome to Wrath to market. It's first in 2019, in the beginning, they were focused on let's get all these cards out to people and see what we get back. See what the general consensus is from all the stores and shops and all this. What do they think of our game and gets feedback and all along the way they were producing Welcome to Wrath, their first set, the alpha set. And later on in that year, in 2019, Welcome to Wrath was printed and put out, and it was mainly in New Zealand, from what I know. It was probably distributed a little bit out, but it didn't have any major distributions as of yet. It was very tight knit, man. So 2019 was a success. They first had the Iris starter decks to really get a glimpse of the game. But then Welcome to Wrath was produced in October 2019, and they got it out there, and people started playing the game. That was all about making sure they started the engine to their car. Now 2020 was completely different. It was all about once the car was on, we got to start driving, man. And we got to start functioning as a business and getting these products to market, selling them out there to stores, and then taking the profits and putting it into the next set. So what they did really well is in 2020, they focused on distributing through their network. So first they talked about the United States. They got them on board, I believe, in February. We got on board in early 2020 for distribution of Welcome to Wrath, and I believe our Arcane Rising wasn't announced yet to be released, but they set that distribution network up, and then later on in 2020, distribution network to Canada and EMEA and whatnot in Europe and Asia Pac were announced as well. So a lot of people don't know that it took a while for other regions to adopt distribution networks, and that's what all 2020 was about is establishing their baseline of, hey, we want to demonstrate value for our game, and we want to put distribution networks out there, make sure we're able to get our cards out to the players, and that's what the focus was, is to build those networks, but also make their original product collectible and have a demand, and make sure that they're able to siphon out products at certain times. It was all about just getting their product out there in different ways. And before that, in 2019, it was just making sure that they could get a product. And I know there's a lot of product development in 2019, but then 2020, it was all about, okay, now that we know how to make a product, let's figure out how to distribute it. And let's make sure we can get it out there and have a solid concrete baseline of, okay, here is how we operate on a global scale, man. It was all about ratcheting that up to a global scale distribution model and forming demand for their product and figuring out how to not put too much product out there in the market at first, trickle it in. They did a great job with that and making sure that the consumer confidence was was at good levels at all time. And one thing that I noticed is Unlimited. Unlimited was a huge pinnacle for this game for Flesh and Blood, and in late 2020, they were forming out their distribution networks, and Unlimited was the first big reprint of their original two sets with Welcome to Wrath and Arcane Rising. And they knew this. They knew that it was a big moment because either collectors or investors would say, hey, this sucks. They are reprinting all these cards. These cards are going to be worthless. Or they're going to say, oh, actually, we don't want Unlimited. Now we only want the original cards, and we're just going to focus all their money over there. And the latter happened. Investors and collectors just focused on the alpha versions, and those prices rose, and it formed a baseline for the demand for alpha, and it was very interesting how that all played out. But what Legend Story Studios did is they knew that this was going to be a crucial time. They knew that if the market didn't react the way they wanted to, it was going to be bad for the game. So they saved so much hype for the game until 1 week before Welcome to Wrath Unlimited was being uh, put out there in the world. And they waited for the TCG player announcement and the CFB partnership. They waited for a bunch of different things to just all accumulate 1 week or a couple days before they distributed the Welcome to Wrath Unlimited product, and that was huge, man. It was a crazy time to be in the game because things were just insane. Every day was just another crazy moment of whoa, like I can't believe this happened to this game. This just means that this game's taking off, and it really just hyped up the demand for the product at a critical period in in their stage of releasing an unlimited product, because when you have that red sticker on it versus the golden seal, it doesn't feel very good when you're buying it. So they really did put the demand out there for their game at a very critical time, and they focused in on it, man. They knew that that was a critical moment. So all in all, 2020, I'm speaking a little bit more about that because I was in the game at that time period. I was in the game before that, but from what I know, before 2020, it wasn't as hyped in the secondary market. It was just chill. They were doing their thing, and it was low key. But once they got on a global scale in 2020, and once their distribution networks were totally fleshed out, and they were able to get those networks in place and go on a global scale, they needed to keep their demand for their product. They needed to keep the demand high, and they did that. They kept the collectability aspect of the game great, and they restored confidence in the collectability of their cards. So I've joked in the past, and I'm joking now. They demonstrated their value in 2020. They used the dentist system, and then in 2021, they're going to engage physically. So at the end of 2020, I want to wrap up too is that I think that they were a little too successful at focusing because they saved so much hype and big news for the end of 2020 before Unlimited, that and even more news came out where people just kept coming into this game because they loved it, and things kept getting bought out, and things were really too collectible. So they really did demonstrate their value a lot to the players and the new people around the world that they set up those networks for, and the stores. The stores have very high confidence in this game now as something that they can make money off of. So going into 2021, I think they're going to focus, and this part is more speculation. So I've talked all the history that I know of so far for Flesh and Blood, and that is what they focused on. Each year and each time period, you can really see that in each moment they focused entirely on one thing, and they set things up in each phase, and they made sure that they're good. They know how to do it, and then they move on to the next, complete their objectives in order, in logical order. And in 2021, I think that Flesh and Blood is really going to focus more on players, getting people into the game, and they're going to focus more on capturing that market share, getting the press and news focus out there for Flesh and Blood. I think that's going to be a much larger focus for their game. And I want to emphasize that a lot of times that when people look at Flesh and Blood or anything in life, I feel that when you have critical things to say about the game, and I've had many criticisms of the game. I still love it. I still love the heck out of it, but even though they didn't have as much media coverage in the past, it's good that they focused on what they did at one time instead of trying to juggle all these balls at the same time. It would have been too hard, man. They focused on each thing at a time. They did it great, and then they went on to the next thing in order to complete things in order to be great at the end of the day. And that's really the takeaway from this is that when you have a bunch of objectives, focus is really important because you really can hammer things out in order. Because if you try to do all things at once, if you try to do everything all at one time, it's not going to be a really great finished product and things are going to fall through the cracks. But if you focus on one thing at a time, you'll get there, over time. And 2021 with the release of the Monarch product and Kingdoms, I think that they're really going to get a lot of new people into the game. Market share is going to increase a lot. People are going to come into this game because they realize how great it is, and more people are going to play the game. And once people play the game, go figure, I think people are going to be pretty dang impressed about how amazing it is. So that really leaves me off about the history of Flesh and Blood as I see it so far and the focus that they have and focus that Legend Story Studios has overall. And also with the game, they focused on collectability and they also focused on playability. It's on their website. On the 2018 post by James White, he posted that he's making a trading card game because he wants it to be collectible but also playable. And those are two opposing things when making trading cards. And I think it was said on purpose because those are the two main things that people have in a trading card game. I mean, if you didn't have to trade in a TCG, right? T is a trade. If you already had all the cards you needed, there's no need to trade. So it had to be collectible and it also had to be playable because it's a game. So you really see that those are the two focuses that he has on the game, and that's another example of how this game was all focused on certain things at certain times. But again, my completely super biased opinion of the history of Flesh and Blood up to 2020 from the time of inception and how I see that Legend Story Studios has focused on certain things at certain times. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion on focus. Now I want to go into my channel. If you care, great. If you don't, no worries, man. Don't hold it against you. So I've received a lot of feedback over the ages, and I really appreciate it, man. If you've given me feedback over the years, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I started my channel and recently a lot of people have mentioned that the background and the aesthetics could be updated and I listen, man, and I really appreciate that. And some people have been a little bit more subtle than others, and other people have been pretty pretty loud and I hear everyone at the same tune, man, and I really appreciate it because I've gotten so much support from Flesh and Blood TCG community and any feedback I really take seriously. And I just want to give kind of a background of how I started, man. Go from the beginning of me making content and tell you how I focused. And I want to tell you that when I started making content, I didn't really have too many skills on my plate to make content, even though I love Flesh and Blood. And honestly, I started making content because I really just wanted to interact with the community, and I could type on Reddit for 30 minutes and just get all frustrated and type out this perfect sentence and be like, yeah, and hit send and say, yeah, that was a good thing that they read. But no, man, I'd rather just make a video for 10 minutes, yell at the camera, upload to YouTube, and see on the comments, see what people think. And I really want to put more content out there because, hey, maybe I get lucky and someone randomly clicks on my video and gets interested in Flesh and Blood. That's my goal. I want that to happen, man, and that would be great. But when I started, I didn't have too many skills, and I don't mean to self-deprecate. I'm just saying it like it is, man. And there's a lot of different skills. I mean, there's the aesthetics, like I said before. There's speaking. There's editing. There's putting in the music. There's doing SEO. There's monetization. There's so many different objectives that you have to complete in order to make great content for any game or anything on YouTube. And from the very beginning of my channel, I'm like, man, I do not want to edit. I do not want to do a lot of stuff. I just want to talk in the to the camera, tape it, and then upload it. And I wasn't as good at speaking as I wanted to be. I still needed to learn a lot of speaking skills because I could speak for maybe 4 to 6 minutes, and then I was done. Maybe 8 or 10 if I was really lucky. But I focused only on that for the last 3 to 4 months. I've solely focused on speaking. I've tried so hard to be better. I listened to my videos back, and the whole point of me saying this is I've focused and I've made, let's say, 200. I think I've made a little over 250 videos up until this point about Flesh and Blood only. That this whole channel is only about Flesh and Blood content. I might talk about other stuff, but I focused only on Flesh and Blood, and I made 250 videos up to this point. And what I want to say and what I want to really harp on is, if I didn't just focus on talking and saying things to the camera, and I focused on everything else, and I just did everything, right? I would not have been able to make 250 videos. I probably would have made maybe 50 or 60 videos. There's a lot of time that gets sucked into all these other things, all these other different objectives. And I was like, no, I'm just going to focus on talking. And that's really what I want to do. And that's what I like to do. So it worked out good, man. And I feel that now I am really a lot better at talking. I really like how well I speak and how I can just go on for 20, 30, 40 minutes and just talk about different stuff. And I don't have a script. There's no script in front of my screen that's telling me every single word to say. And if people do that, that's fine. I'm just saying I want it to be to a point where I can do that. And now I am. And I'm reading a lot of feedback recently saying, hey, maybe the background could be a little bit better. And I really appreciate that because I focused up to this point in January 2021. It's mid January 2021. And I want to say that I focused on verbally speaking up to this point. But now, like Flesh and Blood, I want to transition. I want to create a better background. I want to create better aesthetics for my channel. And I want to focus now on that because I think that I know that when I did get eventually, I've upgraded my camera once so far, and when I did, people thought, ha, you got so many people like, whoa, this is insane. It's high def Bronson. And I looked at the videos. It was insane, man. I just couldn't believe it. It was so much less strain on my eyeballs. It was so much more visually pleasing, even though it was, similar content. It was just night and day difference. And I realized the same with the background. When I changed this background, I looked at it on the screen right now. Like, wow, that's so much better. So I really appreciate people commenting because I really do want to make better content for Flesh and Blood. So hopefully I get more people into the game, and I love just making content for the channel. And I know this goes really against this whole normal guy in a normal room. I'm still a normal guy. I guess I have a little bit updated room here, but I want to also shed some light on that too. Is that I like saying that in the beginning because back in the day, I was one of few people making secondary market update videos for Flesh and Blood, and around September, late September, this game started just getting crazy, and it got too crazy to the point where I didn't want people taking information I had previously said and making any decisions for investing or whatnot. I wasn't about that life. So I put a ton of disclaimers on my channel, and I said I'm a normal guy in a normal room. You could see the bullcrap in the background of my videos. I am a normal guy. So I didn't want anyone to think I had some credibility, that I had some nice suit and said I had some X business degree and I am the smartest man in the world about trading card investing during a hurricane FOMO. I did not want to be that guy. I personally and not that I know that I'm not liable for anything. I just personally didn't want to lead anyone to miss. It was a personal thing for me. So that's why I started saying I'm a normal guy in a normal room. And it was also true. But also I wanted to, another dual purpose of that is I wanted people to look at me and say, "Hey, I love Bronson's content. You could love me, hate me, or whatever. You could say, hey, that guy's really passionate about Flesh and Blood. I'm passionate about Flesh and Blood too. Maybe I can make videos like Bronson. Maybe I can do it a little bit better or do it in my own way. Do do a certain video my style. And I wanted that. I wanted to be like, hey, you guys say, hey, I'm not a normal guy in a normal room. I'm a little bit of special. So I want to make my channel. And that is really awesome, man. I love when I see new channels for Flesh and Blood. I check them out. I like them. And anyway, I love seeing that in the Flesh and Blood community, and I love seeing it grow. It's like a garden, man. I'm just a little I'm a little tomato plant. I see all these strawberries and blueberries and squash and cucumbers all blossoming in this nice vegetable garden that we call Flesh and Blood content, and it's awesome. I'm going on a tangent. I'm not focusing. I'm gonna focus now. I'm just gonna say that this breaks a little bit of the normal guy in a normal room thing, but I'm okay with that because I just want to make great content for Flesh and Blood, and I think it's a lot easier on the eyeballs for everyone, and I care about your eyeballs. I care about all the types of things that go into making a good video. Because hey, man, I mean, there could be the best actor in the world, but if the screenplay and his wardrobe and all the background set is bad for this actor in a movie, the movie's probably not going to be that great. And the same with content. If I don't have good aesthetics, it doesn't matter you know, how much content I make that makes you woke. It's not going to matter. I mean, it's not going to be that great content, and it's not what I want to do. So I just want to end on saying thank you, everyone, for watching my content in the past, and look forward to some hopefully enjoyable content going forward with your less strain on your eyeballs with nice backgrounds. And I definitely want to update a little bit more. I'll definitely do things. I won't make a video every time I update my background or do aesthetics. I just wanted to give you a little bit of insider thing of what I'm thinking about with my channel. But I focused fully on making really great videos where I can talk and I can speak and I can just speak on the spot. And I've done that for the last 3 months. And now is a really good time for me and my channel to just focus more on aesthetics. Now that I have that in my camp, now I'm just going to focus on the visuals and the backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. So I get better in that realm because I really want to make great content. And I want to specifically thank, you know, there's content creators out there who are very nice to me, and there's a lot of other people who talked about, hey, here's feedback for you, Bronson, and I really appreciate that. And yeah, in December, Legend Story Studios was really nice, and they sent me this banner, and I really appreciated it. It came late in December, and I just never really got around to working with it until now because I'm focused on being more aesthetically pleasing. So I decided to put it up, but that was really nice of them. I had made 200 videos at that point around, so I had really gone ham on Flesh and Blood content creating up to that point, and they were very nice of them to send me this poster. So, or the banner. So I appreciate that. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, and maybe you have some takeaways around different focus on your life. But yeah, just thanks to Flesh and Blood TCG community. Long live Fab, and see you around.